All right, boys and girls, welcome back. Sam's Army episode 2.238. We got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to start out with headlines, where we'll talk NWSL and USL media deals, Premier League transfer moves, and Luiz Diaz's dad resolution. Weekly What If, Pep Guardiola related. Premier League, we got to talk about Chelsea and City and perhaps the game of the season so far that was this weekend. Cole freaking Palmer. And wheels perhaps starting to fall off, as somebody predicted, hand up. Spurs and perhaps even Newcastle. Around the world, we got MLS playoff updates, USL, NWSL silverware, and then some US men's national team chatter as we enter yet another international break. Buckle up, folks. And then stoppage time with Ivan Toney's best bets, where the overtrain is cooking with thermonuclear gas. Get hot. Unfortunately, as I said, international break. So we'll see how that goes. And then finally, everyone's favorite segment, GOAWs. Now it's time to welcome in the gruesome twosome here with me this week. First up, we got a guy who is playing hurt this week. So if he's a little off his game, everybody cut him a little slack. The person in question, of course, being Mr. Tyler Terrans. So, Tyler, can you give us an explanation of how you may possibly have caught chlamydia?
Well, when mommy and daddy don't love each other and they have one drunken night, no. I appreciate you just putting me on blast right away. You could have just left it alone. Everybody could have just potentially just been like, oh, Tyler was a little bit more quiet and not as ridiculous as usual this episode. But yeah, I've got a bad case of the man flu. I had a moment this afternoon where, you know, like when you're really like phlegmy and you're like backed up and you'll go like, and you'll like snort it up. There was so much that I started to choke, and I like involuntarily hopped up a loogie, like against my will type thing. So that's where I am right now.
Like on your computer screen type thing?
No. I was just like walking around. I was just walking around, and like it just went on the floor, and I was just like, I'll get that later.
That is truly disgusting. But thank you for the visual. I probably deserved that after the intro, but no, I did mean part of that. Everybody do appreciate Tyler just a little extra for playing hurt this week. We appreciate you. Next up, last but never least, Mitchell Goulet, aka Overtime Mitch, fresh. I do mean fresh off a relaxing weekend in San Diego. So, Mitch, give us the highlights and the lowlights for from your trip to the NWSL final this weekend.
Low lights for travel, just flight delays and being stuck in the San Francisco airport for 10 hours. They got a yoga room, and ready for this. So I have 10 hours to spend in San Francisco airport. I go into this yoga room, and I'm stretching, I'm minding my business, and this lady comes in like guns blazing. She drops her bags and goes, all right, I got 5 minutes before my flight. I got to make the most of it. Like, looks me dead in the eyes as she said it. And I'm like, oh, word, we doing this? Like, yeah. And then she pulls up a yoga mat and starts stretching. I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. But I got really excited for a second. So that almost was the highlight, but instead it was just a fun anecdote. No. The highlight was I got recognized a couple times during the NWSL Fans Fest and took some pictures with a couple people. That was really cool. And the game was awesome. They red card at the very end of the game to the keeper for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and I thought we were going to see some fireworks, but nope. Gotham pulled out the well-deserved win. No spoilers, but Gotham were crowned NWSL champs, and it was overall a pretty good trip.
Yeah, that was quite a little finish to the game there. It was all sorts of stuff happening.
Nuts.
Yes. Okay. Well, good game and a good trip, other than obviously the travel, which always stinks. Although if you'd gotten laid in a San Francisco airport, that'd have been quite a story to write home about.
That would have been all I talked about this pod, but
maybe next time. All right, headlines. So some interesting, potentially exciting news out of NWSL and USL this past week, where both leagues unveiled big money media deals that will last through the 2027. So NWSL, I'm just sort of giving you the top line here, is 240 million. So 60 million a year. And this is with 4 different media outfits: ESPN, CBS, Sports, Prime being Amazon, and then Scripps, which I believe owns like the ION channel, ION. Anyway, so the basics here are there's going to be, I think, more games available to be watched. The production quality allegedly will be better, more TV, more cameras at games and that sort of thing. So, overall, I think that's a win. $240 million is, that's not nothing. Then on the other side of things, we got USL. And so no money was announced that I saw with this deal, but CBS Sports is going to televise 100 games per year for the next 4 years. And these include some third division games, so USL League One, with my beloved Forward Madison. So they'll be on TV, which just sort of got me thinking, like, I'm old enough to remember when there was like, maybe 2-3 games on TV. We'd get like a Champions League on Tuesday and like MLS on Thursday night and like a Bundesliga game on PBS at like 6 in-the-morning. Like now we're legitimately televising third division soccer games, which just in terms of like the glow up and the come up of soccer in the US is amazing and awesome. I don't know, Mitch, any thoughts on one or both of these deals?
When you put it like that, we talk about the former timeline of having like 2 games on a week versus now where we're where we're showing like legit third division professional games in the States. It's really kind of cool to see how far the game's come. I saw one quote over the weekend from an NWSL player who I forget who actually said it, but she mentioned that playing in Europe, games are big, but playing here in the NWSL, that each game is treated like it's a Champions League final, that each game is well attended, the atmosphere, the vibes are great, and the competition is fierce. And I think that speaks to how far the game's come, and these price tags reflect that. So this is good for everyone. This is a big, big, big win.
All right, next up, we got the Premier League. So Premier League announced plans to vote on essentially what would be a temporary ban of loans involving associated clubs that would be essentially fast-tracked and be in place before the transfer window opens in January. So the big deal that everybody's talking about here that would be affected is, the rumored deal that Newcastle is trying to get Ruben Neves from Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. And of course, Saudi Arabia, the PIF, whatever, the Public Investment Fund, owns Newcastle and Al Hilal. So, this would sort of put a kibosh on that specific deal. Obviously, it's not supposed to be intended to be directed against any specific club or deal. But this strikes me as, the Premier League. Now, why they need to fast track it right now, I don't quite know. But, it's them obviously trying to figure out how to deal with these multi-club ownership groups. Citigroup is obviously the poster child for that. Red Bulls, which is not in the Premier League, but they are certainly on that sort of list. But there's a lot of, Premier League clubs that fit on it as well. Leicester City, basically, like I think 8 or 9. Like Brentford ownership owns multiple clubs: Brighton, Crystal Palace, Leicester City, Nottingham Forest, Southampton. Well, they're not in the Premier League anymore. West Ham and Arsenal. Although Arsenal is with Colorado Rapids, and Stan Kroenke doesn't give a single fuck about them, so I'm not sure they count. But anyway, Tyler, any thoughts on sort of the how fast they're trying to do this, and just the thoughts on the move itself?
Maybe not the speed of it, doesn't really catch my attention, but like this is something that Major League Soccer also, kind of deals with a little bit, and that other teams have experienced that are closer to home, like Jack Harrison, what was it, being bought by Manchester City, I think, right? From the FC. And it's like they're just pumping money into their own club. Like the whole thing is just I'm not privy enough to those financials to understand like exactly how that's supposed to work and how it's not supposed to work. But yeah, I mean, it's hairy to say the least, but it's just bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah. It just, obviously it's tough to say because they haven't done the ban and they don't know exactly how they're going to do it and all that stuff. It just feels a little reactionary at the moment, but at the same time also overdue, because they should have seen these sort of issues coming, and they will have been dealing with these for mini transfer windows in a row. So it seems weird that they are all of a sudden like, now we got to get this done before January. And I suppose Newcastle fans might feel a little aggrieved by that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Wait, Mitch, any final thoughts on that?
I like what you said, that it feels like it's a little overdue. This transfer in particular, with between Newcastle and Al Hilal, would be probably the highest profile transfer out of all of them like these. You mentioned like City Football Group and Red Bull. Those kind of pathways to professional levels have almost been like celebrated in the past. Like you can go from New York Red Bulls to Red Bull Salzburg to RB Leipzig. Like it's been almost kind of a cool ecosystem to be a part of. But now that it's a Premier League player, it's a higher profile one. I can see why people are now starting to, turning their eyes and being like, oh, okay, maybe this is something we need to regulate a little more.
Yeah. And the whole reason, by the way, that this deal between Newcastle and Al Hilal is so rumored is basically because of the Toney suspension. And they're all of a sudden like, oh shit, we need that kind of player that Ruben Neves is. So it sort of makes sense in that sense. Okay. I'm sure we'll hear more about this in the coming days, no doubt. Finally, some good news. Luiz Diaz's dad was released by the baddies in Colombia, who had kidnapped both his, Luiz Diaz's mom and dad. They apparently were unharmed, and just a good news. So we'll, yay, UN or whoever the hell made that happen.
You have a different definition of baddies than we do, but that's okay.
I know. I kind of use that tongue in cheek, figuring maybe you would laugh at me for being an old person saying it like that.
I will.
You never let me down. Thanks, Mitch. All right, we'll move on to weekly what if. So this one, shout out to Cyrus Tracy on Instagram, who sent me this over the weekend. Pep Guardiola. Now, obviously, he's considered the best, if not one of, if not the best sort of coach out there at the moment. He's sort of the gold standard. What if City suddenly started sucking? How bad would they need to be, and for how long, for Manchester City to say, you know what, Pep, clean out your desk. You got to go. Mitch?
How many cold days would there need to be in hell before they kick Satan out? Like the dude, he would need to finish probably out of the top 4 for them to actually can him. Which
just one season. You're saying
just one, just one season. But I also think that before City canned him, he would leave. I think he has a very good finger on the pulse of when his time would be up at a club. But if it were to come from the other way, I think he would need to finish out of the top 4. But he would have the whole season. I don't think they would ever can him in the middle of the season.
Okay. Yeah. That seems like a fair assessment, Tyler. He's co-signing.
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree more. The committee is really sapping his energy over there.
Listen, man, why don't you go explore what baddie means in Urban Dictionary and see if it's relevant to what we're talking about right now. This is what happens when you get a little too close to a baddie. All right, not what you're talking about.
True. Fair enough. All right, Premier League time. So no power rankings or weekend preview this week because, as we said, the international break is upon us. But before we turn our attention to the U.S. men's national team games coming up, let's focus on the weekend that was in the Premier League. There were some interesting games, perhaps including the game of the season so far between Chelsea and City. So I will throw it to you, Mitch. I'll just open it up. You can start with City Chelsea if you want. What was the most sort of interesting result of the weekend for you?
Yeah, let's start with City Chelsea. That was, I think, the most interesting neutral game for just about anybody that has 2 eyes. I love some of the discourse on how Paul Merson has been able to call just about everything that has happened in the past couple weeks, and they're like, no wonder this guy have developed a gambling addiction. His foresight is insane. Like the dude just knows ball. And he said he'd be happy with a draw between Chelsea and City, and goddamn, he was right. I did not watch the full game. I've watched the extended highlights, so I'm speaking a lot out of my ass right now. But it really does feel like Chelsea play to the level of whoever they're playing. It doesn't matter if they're playing Burnley or they're playing City. Like they are a mirror of the opponent. And from what I saw, again, didn't watch the game, but from what I saw, it looked like a really fun end-to-end game.
It absolutely was. It absolutely. I mean, like, I did bet the over. Just I
Comfortably.
know, shocked. People would be shocked by that. But then when they hit, 3 goals, then 4 goals, then 5, 6, I was like, what is going on with this game? It felt like Cole Palmer slash Raheem Sterling revenge game because they both
Mm.
played out of their minds in this game. Cole Palmer has been incredible all season. We'll probably get to him in just a second. But Tyler, any thoughts on Chelsea City? I mean, I Mitch was right. Like Chelsea can play down to anybody, and they seem to be able to play up to anybody as well.
Yeah, and that's why they'll finish in 8th. And also did not see any of the game. I didn't see any of the extended highlights. All I did was see the final scores, see the group chats that were popping off, and then I looked at how it affected Liverpool in the table, and I went on with my day.
Fair enough. You had some baddies to hang out with. Well, listen, it was a great. Let's be honest, it was a great performance from from Chelsea. Like they've been under the gun for most of the season. They came up with a better performance against Tottenham last week, although I would say that was injury / suspension, red card related. Whereas this was 11 on 11, going toe to toe with perhaps the best team in the world. And they looked like they not only belonged, I mean, there were times when I was like, they could absolutely win this game. So credit to Chelsea. Cole Palmer, quickly on him. This guy he's 21, just sold from City over the summer. He's ridiculously good. And he's just showed up. He just showed up into the squad and just like into difficult circumstances, being surrounded by whatever else is going on at Chelsea. And he's just been putting in 90-minute shifts, like left and right. He's taking the penalties. The amount of confidence this kid must have is incredible. I don't know. I'm a Cole Palmer fan, I guess. Like I've only really seen him play this season. Like we saw him play for moments here and there for City last season, but like not a lot. He has just been incredible. What do you think his ceiling is, Mitch?
I don't know. I don't like saying one player is like he's the next this player because I think that does a disservice to both players by comparing them. They're two completely different players. But I don't know. He's a really creative profile. He's long and lanky, but he is strong on the ball. It feels like he is currently playing with a ton of confidence, which you just can't replace in a player. I don't know. His ceiling is the roof. He's an exciting guy. I bought a couple of his rookie cards, like autographed rookie cards a couple months ago, and I'm really glad that investment is coming to fruition now. So if anybody's interested,
Are you gonna sell them and get a few extra shekels in the East Village of New York and take out a couple baddies and celebrate?
I just might. I have some other investments that are brewing right now. I got a Victor Wembanyama card that's just keeps going up.
I mean, what's the difference between him and Bol, really? I mean, come on.
That conversation is so asinine. Oh my God. We'll get into that in the Sam's Army basketball pod.
Yeah, we need to get Larry and TJ involved with that one. All right. Yeah, when I just watched Cole Palmer, I was like, I mean, like, obviously they're different people, but like kind of reminds me of Jude Bellingham a little bit. Just like
sure.
He's a tall, lanky guy. He's got good, foot skills. He's fast. He's got vision, confidence. I'm a fan. And Chelsea, we give them a lot of shit for a lot of their transfer business, Ukraine Bolt and all that. But Cole Palmer, they might have hit one out of the park with that one. All right, other games. Wolves beat Spurs. This game, I mean, this is not, Ange ball anymore. For the next couple months, I've been waiting for the wheels to come off. I thought they might come off like sort of slowly over the course of a couple weeks. No, they came off basically over the course of 1 week. They are fully gone. With red cards, with the injuries to Madison. The Madison injury is just, and Van de Ven. I mean, like the two guys, I mean, like with Son, the two guys that like we just could not do without. We will now be without until January or something, which is just absolutely terrible. This is not going to be Ange ball. He's going to keep trying to play it, and God bless his soul. This is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. Like I thought maybe, Ange Magic might pull us through that Wolves game. We were up 1-0 for, most of it. But then of course, like in stoppage time of the second half, first goal was actually pretty brilliant by the Wolves guy. I don't even know who finished that one, but his first touch.
Arabia.
That was
disgusting.
That was beautiful. I'll give him that. The second goal was just soul crushing, where we gave away a foul in midfield, and I was watching it live, and like our entire midfield and Eric Dyer were kind of slowly lollygagging it back on defense. And this is in the 90+6 minute, when it was only supposed to be 96 minutes, with the injury time. And I saw them sort of slowly kind of, raising their hands and like sort of, that's not a foul, blah, 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 and not running back on defense. And then Wolves just cut us apart. Eric Dyer watched the guy run right in front of him for the second goal and finish it. Whereas Davies, watched the guy on the first one. It's just like, Ben Davies and Eric Dyer, we know what they are, and they're not up to the level of, what Tottenham want to be. And this is what we're going to have to deal with for the next couple of months. And it's going to stink. It's going to absolutely stink. I had fun the last few months. I told you I was going to enjoy it, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. And unfortunately, it's over. It's done until say mid-January. I'm going to try as best I can to put my heart in hibernation for the next, however many months, 2 months, 3 months. And then, whatever, it's going to stink. The next couple months are going to stink. That's my warning for Tottenham fans. This is not like some sort of one-off thing. We're going to stink. We're going to be bad.
When it rains, it pours, huh?
Yeah, we're going to be bad. Like this, you can't play the way Ange wanted to play and have success without Madison in the middle. Oh, it's just a different team.
Can't do it.
And then Van de Ven, and Romero is out. Romero is with red card, so he'll be back soon. Van de Ven was hamstring, and he's out till mid-January with Madison. Like this stinks, and we're going to stink, and we're going to be back in the mid-table. And all the people, it's funny. I should make a cycle of how this works, because when Spurs are doing really well, unexpectedly well, all these non-Spurs fans anoint us as, we're going to win the Premier League or whatever else. And then they laugh at us for that. And then when we inevitably, suck and the wheels fall off and, we're not going to be that, team, we're not going to win the Premier League, which we never said we were going to win. Then the same people who laughed at us for anointing, for being anointed Premier League champions are now laughing at us for not being Premier League champions. It's just like it's the cycle. It goes around and around and around.
No one's ever going to laugh at you for not being Premier League champions, because nobody actually expects you guys to win the league.
No. But it's a laughing at us for saying that we were going to be Premier League champions when rightful Tottenham fan said that. Like nobody with a brain actually said that. So it just, whatever. It's just the way it works with fans and giving each other shit. So I know how it works. God damn it. I'm just being not mad at the moment, because the next couple of months, they're going to be tough. Arsenal, you guys did pretty well. And the Danglies are now officially dead for God knows how long. I can't believe the Danglies last as long as they did, to be honest.
They're not dead. They're just smaller on those little weirdo graphics you make.
They are. They're tiny. But, you guys, who'd you beat? Burnley this weekend? Burnley.
Yeah, we took care of business against Burnley. We don't have to speak more or less about it. Did what we should have done.
The same thing with Burnley. We're going to keep talking about this. Like, how long are they going to stick with company? It just feels like, I don't know. I was expecting so much more.
I've heard a lot of support for the project the company is doing. And you got to think about, like, how long has this guy been coaching versus, and now he's in the Premier League. How many 4th, 5th year coaches coach in the Premier League in their first job? Like, I don't think he held a head coaching job before Burnley, did he?
I think he had one. He was in back with someone in Belgium. Was it Anderlecht?
Yeah, maybe it was Anderlecht. Yes. I could be making that up. I don't know. But Give him credit. His side is not good enough to get results. I'm not going to say they don't play a distinct style, but they're just not good enough I don't think he has the players to succeed in the Premier League. And is that a combination of like on him, on the office, on the team itself? Who knows? But I've seen just general optimism about Vincent Kompany's side because I attribute a little bit of this to the Premier League career that he had.
Yeah.
Like
He's a winner.
you're not, yeah, he's a winner. He's won trophies. He's captained city sides that are legendary. Like he's played alongside some of the best. You're not, as a football fan, inclined to count that guy out, unless you watch them week in and week out and you see that just like they just don't have the quality to compete with Premier League teams over the course of 90 minutes. I think they'll figure it out at some point, but if we were doing power rankings this week, they are at my bottom.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big question though is he going to philosophically, be set in his ways, kind of like Ange, and Tottenham? Is he going to be set in his ways and just go fall on his sword or go down swinging, the way he's doing that? Or does he need to just recognize, we're going to go down if we keep playing this way, and, pull out some Sean Dyche, ugly, old days of Burnley ball,
I think that's the difference between a young manager and Sean Dyche, is that Dyche is willing to adapt and do what needs to be done to win. And I hope for company's sake and his employment's sake that he figures that out. But I can see him kind of continuing in his way. I'll say this. He has named a different starting 11 for every Premier League game this season, apart from the last 2 weeks. So it looks like he is trying to make something work. It looks like he's trying to, change whatever needs to be changed to get a result. I just don't think any of it has worked. So I think he's willing to adapt, but I don't know if any of those adaptations are good enough to make it.
We shall see. On a related note, there has been do you know how many managers have been fired so far in the Premier League this season?
This season? No, I don't.
0. There's been 0 Premier League managers fired this season.
I was going to say, yeah.
Which is a ridiculously small amount. So we're coming off of 2022-23, where 14 managers were fired during the season.
At this point?
No, not at this point.
I was going to say, what the fuck? No.
It was over the course of the season. And that was a high watermark for the Premier League. And so, maybe that's playing into this, because if you could fire a bunch of guys, you got to give the new guy at least a little time, right? At least that's sort of the thought process, even though that's not always been the case with Premier League managers. But yeah, 0 managers have been fired so far this season, which will be interesting. I know the company is near the top of the list.
Yeah. So who still has a job by Christmas? Like, how many people do you think do you think 2 or 3 are canned by Christmas?
Whew, so the top 3 I know in terms of the odds makers are Heckenbottom at Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Ten Hag at United and Kompany at Burnley. So those are the top 3 odds makers. I think Bournemouth must be up there as well. You got to assume at least one's gone. You got to assume that somebody's going to be gone. I mean, I would guess it's going to be Bournemouth or Sheffield United, if I were going to take a shot in the dark.
I think United ride with Eric Ten Hag entirely too long. He's already been.
That's fair. That's fair. But at the same time, like I actually feel like if they fired him now, that would probably be a mistake, which is kind of one of the reasons why I think, they might actually just fire him, because the front office just finds a way to ruin everything. I feel like you got to this whole cycle that they've got in with just firing the manager and keeping a lot of the same players. That seems like, what is it when you bang your head against the wall and expect a different result? The definition of insanity. There you go. Other results. So speaking of United, they got a nice little win. I don't know if we're going to call it nice, but it was a little win. 1-0 at home.
They got 3 points against Luton. Yes, they did.
It was a little win. But funny, I saw this on Twitter. Fun fact about United: they have the most points won out of the last 5 games of Premier League teams. They have the most points won. out of any Premier League team. And if you go back 6 games, they're not the top. They're like, I don't know, third or second. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess maybe the dire straits they're in is probably being aided by the fact they got, worked by City, kind of worked by Newcastle, where that was like the League Cup, and they've been playing so poorly in Champions League. And so I think that's been kind of, amplifying the problems that they've been experiencing.
The off-field stuff amplifies it too, because when you have drama between coaches and players like they do,
True.
Whatever happens on the field that is bad is really, really bad, and people have they have a concrete reason to blame it on. Whereas if a team just plays poor but are staying out of the newspapers, then it's like, okay, well, a little dip in form is nothing to hurt someone.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The rest of the games, there are some interesting ones. West Ham, Nottingham Forest went back and forth. Matt Turner still on the bench. I'm not saying that we need to, start the Stevie Cooper is ISIS thing, the Tommy Tuchel thing, but I'm saying we're getting there. Okay, we're getting there if he's going to be on the bench too much longer. Brighton, speaking of sort of teams that have been surprisingly good, and United, and just in terms of the Premier League results, has been kind of surprisingly good. Brighton have been awful recently. I don't know.
Okay, in Europe.
Yeah, but so what's going on here? Maybe they're putting all their eggs in the European basket. I don't
right.
know. But interesting, because I don't think they have a win in the league since, let's see, how far back? September, maybe? I think that's right. Yeah. So their last win was September at home against Bournemouth. So yeah, been a tough run there for Brighton. And yet you're right. They're doing well in Europa. Okay. No power rankings because we got an international break ahead. No weekend preview, obviously, for Premier League anyway. So we'll move on. Actually, no, before we move on, quickly, got to give an FPL update. And this is not to gas myself up because I'm in like 500th place, and I've needed to do, what is when you change your whole team, like the wild card? Is that what it's called?
Yes, when you play wild card.
I've needed that about 3 weeks in a row, and I just see it as such a big, it's kind of like how I view like chores and stuff. I just put them off if they're too big. It's like too big an undertaking, and I've like put it off for 2 weeks, and I just keep getting further and further behind because I stink.
You should play that sooner rather than later.
Oh, I know. I got like 5 guys that have been on the injured for like, a month. It's just on me. I'm just a bad FPL player. At least, as I said at the beginning, I always am. But you got to give a shout out to the guys up top, including my guy Jack Weisenmeyer. So he's one of my guys from Chicago. He's come out to the kickabouts. He was at the World Cup watch parties. So Jack, number 1, love you. Number 2, congratulations. He's in first place. Team Ream. The Ream team. Jack Weisenmeyer is in first place. So well done, sir. I don't know how you do it. I legitimately don't know how you do it. Everybody else, who else? We got McGod FC, Connor McGowan, Rice Baby, Matthew Carbone, Will Weghorst, Klops and Robos, Al Neilwaki. So there's your top 5. I don't know how far up the leaderboard you are. I know Tommy was way up the leaderboard as of not that long ago. I don't know if he's fallen back. We don't have him on the podcast, and I can't. There he is. I found him. He's 33rd. Okay, Tommy. Not bad at all. I don't know what you're in, but I'm sure it's better in 500th or whatever the hell I'm in.
I dipped in form this week. I was sitting pretty at like 67, and now I'm down around 115. I had a shit week. So
damn, you can
back next week. Yeah.
All right. A little motivation to be better next week. How about that? Okay, so now we'll move on to round the world. Well, we got MLS playoffs. So we're now through this, I don't know what you want to call it, unwieldy, different, wonky. It's just sort of this group stage thing that we did for the MLS playoffs was, everybody's kind of like, how is this going to work? Is it going to be cool because there's a lot more games? Is it going to be just sort of, too much. I've now decided that this group stage, it didn't work for me. I liked aspects of it, like more games. I'm all about that. Like I love watching more games, but like not just more games, but they scheduled them out over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. It felt like there was no cohesiveness. The amount of storylines that you could sort of, latch onto and focus on were just like almost nil, because there was a game on Tuesday and then there was a game next Thursday. And it's just like I was, even somebody who was paying attention, I was kind of like, I wouldn't say lost, but I certainly wasn't hooked. And if you're trying to get some casual fans into that, like there's just, for me anyway, I don't think there's any chance you're going to get casual fans hooked on that sort of stuff. What is your sort of thoughts so far on the playoffs and the format specifically, Mitch?
Yeah, I definitely saw what they were trying to do with this best of three format. It's such an American thing. You look at every other American sports league and they have a best of three, best of five, or best of seven series, and that's kind of ingrained in the league's culture. This, however, I just don't think that works for soccer. This was really difficult to follow. I think the amount of games at on the front end of a playoff run can hurt some teams because injuries, cards can carry over. Like I just don't think this is the best in the best interest of the teams and the players. I think it's very media driven and money, money, money. But yeah, and I echo a lot of what you said, that like I find it really difficult to follow some storylines. There were big goals and big moments that almost felt not inconsequential based on like the situation that they were in, despite them being in the 90 plus minute. They were, they ended up in that first of a best of three series, and it's like, well, it wasn't that meaningful then.
Right.
Even though it was a playoff game, like it's kind of a third of a playoff game almost in a sense. It's not really, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I think overall the format's a miss for me as well. I've seen a lot of that same sentiment online, that people are just finding it really, really difficult to keep up with them. I went to New England Revolution was nice enough to invite me and my family, which was awesome. Saw a Revs game with my family for first time in however long. But we went to the last game against Philadelphia Union. It was game two. Mark Anthony Kaye got a unfortunate red card in the first half. I do think it was a red. Like
Yeah.
you stomp on a dude's chest, it's a red card. But it was real, like the support was tough. It's tough to get people out to Foxborough in the middle of a Wednesday night. Like it's really a format, and it's a time of year as well that's I think really difficult to mobilize fans. Now we're sitting in the middle of an international break, and we have another 2 weeks till we see another MLS playoff game. It it's it really doesn't feel like a cohesive playoff tournament, but rather like let's fit as many games as we can when we can. And that's just not good for the full product.
That's exactly it. I mean, like there were some interesting storylines, right? Kansas
Yeah,
City
yeah.
beating St. Louis was huge, and at least that felt at least kind of cohesive, because it was two games, one back to back. I mean, like within a few days of each other, and obviously it's a huge upset. It should be or will be a huge rivalry, and sort of they'll look back on that as one of the defining moments in it. So there was that, like the Miazga thing, and like whether he like went into like the dressing room of the refs, and like whether
Yeah.
security brought him out, and like his suspension, and the really, really weak yellow card he got to sort of that whole situation got kicked off in the penalty shootout. Like that's a storyline that could have sort of grown and been something. It was something on Twitter, especially among Cincinnati fans and Red Bull fans, but like it just didn't feel like it resonated. The Columbus Atlanta series was a lot of fun, goals galore. Two teams that just went toe to toe and threw haymakers, and that was like, I feel like the best, looking at this bracket, You had St. Louis and Kansas City, and that was, you could grab onto kind of the rivalry and, the proximity and the geographic rivalry, right? And then you had Atlanta and Columbus, and just the fact these two were going to be two teams just going toe to toe with one another. And like, even with those, it just didn't, I don't know. I didn't sense that there was any kind of resonance with, people who, I follow a lot of people on Twitter that aren't necessarily soccer people. And I don't think I saw anybody, like nobody tweeting from that sort of non-soccer crew. I didn't see anybody tweeting about MLS playoffs, when in previous years, I think that it has resonated at least a little bit. And so for me, it was a miss.
I think later in the playoffs we will see those non super committed MLS fans who are just general sports fans. I think the storylines will come to light and we'll get more national media pickups, and we'll see that later in playoffs. But ideally, you hook people early in playoffs, and that just doesn't seem like it's happened.
No, and that's, I think, a product of there being these three game series, which people didn't quite understand or weren't excited about, and the fact that they were scheduled over such a long period of time for some of the series. Those parts, those elements of the format, just, I think, are a miss. So we'll see.
Another thing that was super curious is that NYCFC and Inter Miami just played a friendly.
Yeah, a Ballon d'Or, just sort of like to commemorate.
Yeah, but that was likely the most viewed, I'll call it an MLS game, MLS matchup out of everything that's happened in the past 2 weeks, and we know why. But it feels super out of place to have playoffs going on and then just have two teams play a super planned friendly in the middle of that. Like, you're almost
playoff teams, and you're taking
you're
away
acknowledging the fact that, well, those aren't getting views, so let's schedule something else that's going to bump viewership, because like, it's super transparent if you think about it.
Yeah, they're not even hiding it.
No.
Basically. Yeah, we'll see. We go to the single elimination essentially at this point. So hopefully we do go to single elimination, right?
After this, after group stage, yes.
Okay. So hopefully there'll be sort of, more resonance, and there's some good matchups: Cincy and Philly, Orlando and Columbus, Houston. By the way, MLS, I think, dodged a real bullet with that Houston RSL series, because Houston won the first game and then they drew the next two. And so they went to penalties in the next two, and they lost the penalty shootout in the first one. They won in the penalty shootout in the tiebreaker. Had they lost that second penalty shootout, it would have been that nightmare scenario, which I believe somebody brought up a couple weeks ago, where an MLS team goes to the playoffs, doesn't lose a single game, and they're out.
Yeah.
Which would be, I think we brought it up in the context of St. Louis and Kansas City after Kansas City won that first game. But I mean, that would stink, to not lose a game in the playoffs, and yet you're out.
I have a pitch. Instead of best of three, why not adopt a Champions League two leg format in which you advance on aggregate? You play a home and an away.
Didn't they? I mean, they've done that before, right? I feel like that's something that I feel like MLS has had every kind of different format and structure, and
they might have. I don't remember it, but I don't remember that being a playoff structure. Again, I could be wrong here.
I think we know the reason that they didn't do that, and it's to give Apple more games, right?
Yeah,
that's just 100%. They're speaking of transparency.
Best of three and having a winner to each game is so American too. It's very American.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will, I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the weeks to come, and we will have, Tyler, maybe some MLS people or players with us at the time. By the way, Tyler, for those of you not watching on YouTube, he had to bounce. He got a call from his dad, so he had to go see some things and do some stuff. So we'll wrap up MLS there. The games do get started after the international break, so there's another sort of long break here with no MLS playoff games, which, to be fair, is not really MLS's fault, but they need to figure out something, because you got to condense the season or something, and you can't have these long breaks in the middle of the playoffs. You're just losing all sorts of any momentum you will have built up. Okay, let's move on and get to the other things on stoppage time here. So a couple quick shout outs. You already mentioned Gotham FC. Our girl Katie Stengel, of course, plays for them. And they took home the NWSL championship this weekend. One of the big storylines going in the game was Ali Krieger versus Megan Rapinoe. And Rapinoe pulled up lame. I think, was it Achilles? Did they?
That's what she said. I don't know about the diagnosis, but that's what she said. So yeah,
boy,
within the first couple minutes, it was just really tough to see because like you see her go down and then you see her stay down and you're like, ooh, no, 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 and then they start waving people over. Yep, yeah,
never good. And not that she's old, coming from me, but when it's somebody older, you're just like, oh shit, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah,
this is gonna be bad. But shout out to Ali Krieger, obviously, and the rest of Gotham FC and Midge Purse. She was
baller. She had, I think, player of the match performance. I mean, her assist alone was pretty unreal, but she controlled that game more than anybody else. She was very exciting the entire time, very dependable. Midge Purse deserves a call up and a starting position, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure she if she's not in the mix, I think she's already at least in the mix for.
She is, yeah, she is in the mix, but I would love to see her get starting minutes on the U.S. Women's National Team.
All right. So shout out Gotham FC. And I don't know if they went worst to first, but I think that it's interesting how NWSL you can move up the table quickly with the right offseason moves. So obviously shout out to their front office on whatever they did. And USL Phoenix Rising got the win over Charleston Battery, and I think it went to penalty kicks. I saw one of the penalty kicks. I think it might have been the first one. Guy tried to Panenka.
Oh, that Panenka, yeah.
Oh, the keeper just stood right there. That's the worst. That's the worst feeling in the world. And then Phoenix went on to win. So shout out Phoenix Rising. I know a lot of people talk about them as being a potential, MLS city, and I think that clearly they are. Not that this game means something one way or the other with that, but we'll see on that. But shout out to Phoenix Rising, obviously. Congrats on a great season. So here's a couple news and notes to talk about on the U.S. men's front, or U.S. boys, I guess, as it were, technically. So the U.S. youth national team, men's boys team, U17 World Cup is off and running now. We have played our first group stage game. We played Good Korea. We won by 3-1. Nimfasha Berchimas scored a brace. I believe he's actually like 15. He's like the youngest kid on the team, if not in the tournament. He's out there scoring braces. So, it's looking good. And it's interesting. I've been hearing a lot of, or I've been seeing a lot of tweets lately about how much better the youth setups are in countries like Japan and South Korea. So it was interesting that we went out there and, I wouldn't say work them. I know they had a ton of shots, but we obviously got a good, nice, solid 3-1 win to start off the U17 World Cup. And if you look at other teams, maybe Mexico starting off with a 1-3 loss, that's tough. It's unfortunate for nuestros amigos. So hopefully we keep that momentum going for the U17s. Now on the U23s, we had a roster drop for a couple pre-Olympics. This is essentially going to be a Olympics team, but this is for some pre-Olympics friendlies that we're playing against Iraq and Morocco. And all anybody wanted to talk about was who was not on the team, which is fair. I mean, anytime you see a name, then you're like, somebody like Diego Luna comes to mind. The kid was just balling out for RSL in MLS, and in the MLS playoffs, he was looking great as well. And he wasn't on this list. I know there's other guys like Brian Gutierrez here in Chicago, and some other names that people are like, why the hell aren't they on this team, on this roster? So a couple things to keep in mind. This is just for some friendlies. This is not for the actual Olympics. So chances are they're going to have, this is basically bringing some guys in, give them a look. I think guys like Diego Luna and Brian Gutierrez and, some other well-known names that everybody's like, why aren't they there? they'll be called in for the Olympics. They're just not on
Yeah.
this roster for the camp to give some new guys a look and see how they fit and all that stuff. This feels like that kind of move, especially since a lot of the guys that aren't on the list are still playing in MLS. They still got playoffs. So it's just something to keep in mind. The people who are, blowing their tops over the fact that Diego Luna. I also saw a local reporter for RSL who said that Diego Luna actually asked not to be on this particular camp because
I was going to bring that up. Why? What do you think as a player is going through your mind if you are advancing to the next round of MLS playoffs, but then in the middle of that you have a 1.5, 2 week national camp? That has to put a hiccup in any kind of momentum your team has. I feel like it's momentum and storylines too from a league's perspective, but as a player especially, like that is really difficult to be on the front end of a playoff run and then just all of a sudden spend 2 weeks away from your team.
Yeah. And it's happening with the senior team too, right? I mean, we got this international break. Well, granted, there was only one MLS player, I believe, called in, Miles Robinson from Atlanta, who is, now they're eliminated. So I guess technically he doesn't have that sort of conflict. But yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a problem with the way the MLS schedules, and the way how long the season goes. But then you got guys like Diego Luna, who's technically their season's done, but he's got to be just sort of, dead tired from the season and all that stuff. So yeah, I think the point being, it's probably not the time to blow a gasket over who exactly is on the roster for a couple friendlies and save that dry powder for who actually makes the team when we go to the Olympics. All right, now finally, we got the big news, or at least the big focus of this week. It will be the home and home that U.S. men's national team is playing against Trinidad and Tobago. And I think the storyline, unfortunately, although not surprisingly, coming into this window is injuries, right? So we're without Pulisic, we're without Weah. Johnny Cardoso just announced that he is not coming into camp with an ankle injury. So there's a lot of holes here where I don't think Cardoso would well, Tyler Adams is a long-term injury, so include him in there. And the fact that Adams isn't there, it means that Cardoso very well could have gotten some serious minutes in these games. So it will be interesting to see how this pans out. So we got the games with home and home with Trinidad and Tobago. Let's talk about who we want to see as our starting 11. As I said, injuries, it's huge, right? So you normally have Pulisic and Weah just locked in at the wings. They're both out. Tyler Adams will be locked in at the 6. He's out. Cardoso might be his backup at the 6. He's out. So let's start at the back and move forward. You go, and I'll shit on you if I hate some of your picks. Go for it.
Fair. All right, I'll be the sacrificial lamb here. I think Turner needs to start, given that he hasn't played for Force in the past couple weeks. He is our number one keeper, and he needs to get touches and he needs to get minutes. That's simple as that. Our defense is healthier than it's been in a long time, actually. I like Jedi and I like Serginho Dest on the outside, and then center back duo, I'm gonna say Chris Richards and Tim Ream.
That's obviously going to be a big question mark. Who's going to be the two?
That's where the contention is.
CCV could be in that. So basically, I think Richards, and then the question mark is like, do you go with the experience of Ream, or do you go with somebody like CCV, who you would sort of hope would be more the future, right? And he's playing well for Celtic. I don't know. I feel like based on what we know about Greg, I feel like Ream is going to be his choice. He seems to go with guys he trusts. This is a game that technically matters, or games that technically matters. This is like to qualify for Copa America, which, we can get just the sky falls and we somehow don't advance past Trinidad and Tobago in this home and home. There is a backdoor. We can still make it to Copa America, so it's not like everything is gone to shit. But yeah, it's bad if we don't if we don't make it past Trinidad and Tobago, just for obvious reasons. The fact that this U.S. team that we got all our hopes and our dreams and our aspirations and our self-esteem and our happiness all tied up in, if we lose to Trinidad and Tobago again, that'd be a real kick in the old mummy daddies, to put it nicely. So yeah, so you got, I think the center back duo will be interesting. I think he's probably going to go with Ream. I would probably lean towards CCV, as much of a team Ream team guy as I am. But I would probably lean CCV and Richards together. I bet you Greg goes with Ream and Richards.
I think so.
Now midfield, who you got?
Oh God, it's a walking wounded out here. I think the ideal midfield for this is McKennie, Musa, and Reyna, with Reyna being in the center of the park. I've said it for the past couple of weeks that he just plays better in the center of the park. It allows him a little more creativity, a little more space to work, and he's not like typical winger fast. So I think he just fits in the middle of the park a lot better. And so I hope that's where he plays. But like, I can see Malik Tillman getting some run. I can see Luca Del Torre getting some run.
Exactly, because Gio he's proven himself to be flexible, and he could play outside if we so choose, right? I mean, like Greg wanted to play him outside in that past cycle a lot. Reyna has just been killing it in the middle for Dortmund, so I feel like don't fuck that up. Like just go the path of least resistance. Play one of our most talented players and the guy with maybe the highest ceiling of the bunch. Play him where he wants to play him where he has been playing and has been sort of showing out. So I'm with you on Reyna in the middle. The issues there are that we don't have a lot of wingers, right? I mean, we
don't.
So like we don't have Pulisic and Weah. So Reyna can play out wide. I think I'm with you. We start him in the middle, and then I
can certainly see Greg playing him out on the right and putting like a Malik Tillman in.
And maybe having him play like, right back on defense and play like, left winger on offense, that type of thing.
Really reinventing what it means to play on the outside.
Exactly. So we've got Reyna in the middle, and the thing about that is that Tillman can play in the middle. Luca Del Torre can play in the middle. Both of us like both of them. So, it's not like we're opposed to that, but Reyna's I feel like Reyna's just the highest ceiling, the best in form. So play him where he plays best. So then who you got up top?
I got Balogun up top. And then we are hurting out of the wings, aren't we? Paredes is in form. He scored on the weekend for Wolfsburg. So I guess by default he's going to get some run, because I'm serious. If you guys look at the roster, like there's not a lot of dudes that can play out on the wing. And then Aronson, who typically has been used as a sub for club and country, might get some starting minutes, because again, I just don't know. Zendejas does not normally play on the outside, if I'm not mistaken.
He hasn't really been playing well for the US. Like when he gets out there for America, Club America in Liga MX, I've seen him balling out. I see him scoring goals. I see him playing well, and then he gets in the US shirt. It's just like he just hasn't found that lately. So to throw him out there for a game that matters right now, that might be tough. And this is actually sort of an important point that you brought up before we got on, which is the fact that no matter who plays, this is not going to be an 11 who has played together and is, sort of gelled and clicking. Like this is going to be, there's going to be some kinks to work out. And I know that fans just don't want to hear that. And people, are ready to fire Greg tomorrow or yesterday, regardless of how we do against Trinidad and Tobago. So there's just sort of this negativity that people are just ready, willing, and able to, get that vein of negativity. They're willing to tap into at a moment's notice, but you gotta give them some time. These are gonna be guys that haven't played together. So Paredes and then Pat and then Brendan Aronson as
put Brendan out there. Yep. I again, everybody should grant this team, not just Greg, but this team as a whole, a little bit of grace. I anticipate these games being very CONCACAF-y, and the goals themselves also might be very CONCACAF-y. They're not going to be like beautiful link-up play like we've seen from Pulisic and Weah in the past, 2-3 international windows. These are going to be some CONCACAF games, and I think that is going to make for some fun footy.
And the first game is here in the US. So it's at Austin, Q2 Stadium. That is on Thursday. And then we got the second game down in Trinidad and Tobago, which everybody will remember quite well, unfortunately. That's on Monday, November 20th. So there we go. Prediction wise, I mean, there's really no reason why this team, all the caveats we've sort of put out there with the injuries, with the fact that guys haven't necessarily played that much together, there's no reason why we shouldn't win both games by 2 or 3 goals. Like if it's anything else, I will be disappointed. And if it's something way worse than that, like obviously
What is 3.5? That seems steep. I'll take 2.5, but 3.5 feels like a
does
lot.
seem steep with
For all the
guys we're
injuries,
missing.
Yeah.
It does seem steep. I mean, listen, I'm completely biased and blindly so I would definitely take the over, but they're definitely pushing it with 3.5, I think.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Let's just go get some wins, score some goals, and maybe ignore the haters for just a little while. How about that? How about we do that?
What a recipe.
How about that? All right, let's put a bow on this episode. It is stoppage time. We will start out with everyone's. Nope, we're not going to start out with everyone's favorite segment. That's the final. We'll start out with overs. No, not overs. The Ivan Toney's best bets, where overs have played a prominent role. And I got to say, as I said before, we're cooking with thermonuclear gas at this point. So last week I gave out, after having a real rough week, admittedly so, and going 1 for 5 the week before, I bounced back by giving out 6 games and won 5 of them. So went 5-1. So if you look back over the course of the last, say, month or so, I'm 19 for 26 on overs. So I went 13 for 15. So it was like 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5. Then I went 1 out of 5. That was not a week to write home about. But then I went 5 out of 6. So things they're looking up. They're looking up. But then having just pumped my own tires and scratched my own back a little bit, this week is going to be tough. So just let me point that out, that if we're really sort of getting excited about this overtrain, maybe this week, let's take it with like a little grain of salt. Let's put a little asterisk. Let's go half units if we're really sort of tailing me, which you probably shouldn't, because the wheels I'm like Spurs. The wheels are going to fall off at any moment. So I got some winners for you, but keep in mind the pickings are mighty slim this week. So I don't have as much faith in these picks as I do as I have had in some of the weeks past. Okay, so we're gonna go back to 5. Maybe some weeks I'll give out a nice little 6, a little dessert, a little something on top, a little something for the kids. Not this week. We're going back to 5. It's the pick, as I said, pickings are mighty slim. So we will start out with Wednesday. We dug deep for this one, boys and girls. We're going to go Cray Valley Paper Mills versus Charlton in the FA Cup. Cray Valley Paper Mills is a team that plays in the Isthmian League in Greater London. So this is the 7th/8th tier of English soccer. The thought process being here that Charleston is going to absolutely just mop the floor with them. That's the hope anyway. I'm sure the line's probably 3.5, not 2.5. Maybe even if it's 4.5, that'd be ridiculous. That's probably a little too much. But if it's 3.5, I'm sticking with it. So that's our Wednesday pick. Thursday, we were going to UEFA qualifiers, excuse me. Georgia and Scotland on Thursday is the overtrain. Friday, we're going to go a little closer to home. CONCACAF qualifiers, Bermuda versus St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Both those teams score and especially St. Vincent and the Grenadines get scored on a bunch. So I'm liking the over in Bermuda and St. Vincent and Grenadines on Friday. Then on Saturday, we are going to England again. And this is the second League 2, I believe, where Accrington and our good buddies Wrexham, who they've seemingly tightened up their defense a little bit, which I don't like at all. Don't like that about Wrexham, but they're on the road, so hopefully, we'll get enough goals out of Accrington and Wrexham. And then on Sunday, going back to the team that Mitch turned me on to, and they've been an absolute just winners, chicken dinners for Cambuur. That's 2 U's, Cambuur, on the Eerste Divisie in Netherlands. They play Roda JC Kerkrade, whatever it is. And they got enough goals in them that I think just Cambuur alone, they figure out a way to get overs just by themselves. So there we go. Wednesday through Sunday. Let's get some more winners. How about that? Okay, Mitchell, you're up. What's your Ivan Toney's best bet of the week?
I just want to, before I go into it, I just want to shout out your pronunciation for just about everything there is probably spot on, and we shouldn't change anything in post.
Thank
As
you. I appreciate that. Pretty much nail it.
Yeah, like you said, this is the international windows are tough, especially because you got a mix of friendlies. You have some like CONCACAF qualifiers. You have some Euro qualifiers. First one I like is Italy -1.5 against North Macedonia. Italy is at home, and -1.5 almost seems like not enough against North Macedonia. That seems really, really friendly. I know I'm not going to count out North Macedonia because I know
they
got a big result against Ukraine last window. I know they're not like a pushover team, but this is Italy at home. I still like Italy at home -1.5.
The thing about North Macedonia is they sort of get looped in with like the directional schools like Southwest Missouri State and all that because they got like North Macedonia.
Yeah. Mentally, I'm like, oh, who the fuck plays for North Macedonia? When in reality, they have they don't have
they got a squad. They're no pushover. But okay, we got it.
We'll I'm not gonna say they're bad. But I still like -1.5 against them. Okay. And then my only other one that I feel like I'm good giving out, I don't like a ton of stuff. I like both teams to score in Jamaica versus Canada. That game is going to be a fun one. Canada has struggled recently, and when I say recently, I mean like the past year. But they can score. They're healthy. Is Jonathan David healthy? Jonathan David's healthy, yeah.
God, has he ever been healthy? I feel like for the last couple years he's been like
okay. I'm saying this if Jonathan David's healthy. I still like both teams to score because Jamaica, this is in Jamaica, by the way, and as U.S. men's national team fans seen, they are no pushover to play against. That is a hard-fought game, but it's an open game, and Canada's a very fast team, so is Jamaica. So I like both teams to score there. Put them together, you're at +220.
All right. I was trying to think of North Macedonia. There's some player that I know. I know that Alioski, the guy for Leeds, definitely plays for North Macedonia. But I feel like there was some other very well-known player that I'm just not thinking of who plays for them. It'll come to me as soon as we.
There was that striker who played for 30 years for North Macedonia who was like, I think, considered their best player ever.
That's exactly who I'm thinking of, but I don't think he's on the roster anymore. So
I think he retired or
North Macedonia, whatever. If you find it, let me know. Okay, we will close up shop here with everyone's favorite segment, GOAWs. It's that time. Normally, you want to go? You got.
I got a couple. I got a couple good ones.
I don't want to take yours. I got a whole list as usual, so I don't want to.
As usual,
step on your toes.
The idea of GOAW has just gone down the drain.
Really,
it's GOAWs.
Really I mean, I had best bet, and I now give out a best bet for Monday through Sunday.
Now you give out a fucking slate. It's
it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, I got a couple of them. One of them is Xabi Alonso, who deserves his flowers for what he's done with Leverkusen. They are one of the most exciting teams in Europe, if you want to talk about overs. And then I saw something recently that he is prioritizing playing quickly, which I just love as a casual fan. But there's a video where he puts, I don't know if this is his directive, but he puts 29 extra soccer balls on the sidelines to ensure that when balls go out for throw-ins, that his players can get a ball within 2 seconds and get it right back into play. 29 balls on each sideline. So you do the math. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that's just tons and tons of footballs around the field to ensure. Like, it's a stroke of tactical genius that may fly under the radar and may not even be him, but I like it. Another GOA I want to give out is Sam Pham member and all ginger team Tim Parker, who came in, I think was snubbed of MLS Defender of the Year to Matt Miazga. But he came in second in MLS Defender of the Year. I genuinely do think he was snubbed. I think Tim was one of the most consistent defenders in the league all season. Did not miss time with injuries, led his team to unparalleled success for a team as young as St. Louis was. Like, Tim Parker's my MLS Defender of the Year. Respect to Matt Miazga, but I'm gonna stick with Tim here. Yeah, I think those are my two goers. One more. Sorry, Seth Fabregas, who yesterday was named the interim head coach of Como 1907 and made his, I don't know if it was coaching debut, but I first saw him coach at TST, a tournament that Sam and I were both at. And I was in the huddle with him. I didn't understand what he was saying because he was speaking Italian, but he was getting the boys fired up, and it was really cool to see him coach. And I posted something shortly after that, like, oh, maybe we might see Seth Fabregas coaching in the near future. Sure enough, 6 months later, he's got the interim head coaching job at Como 1907. So I don't want to say I manifested that, but I'll take a little credit.
Yeah, you played a part. You played a little part.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Bringing the universe together on that one. Two things. Number one, good shout on Tim Parker. He obviously had an awesome season. He at least got he was an all-star, so at least he got some recognition there. Little known fact, I think people probably forgot this. Matt Miazga is part of Sam Pham as well. He was on the podcast
true.
several years ago. Also, another news and note quickly, Goran Pandev is the North Macedonian guy.
That's who it was. Yep.
That's who I was trying to think of as well. So there it is.
People are gonna be pissed 5 minutes ago when they listen to this and they're like, "It's Pandev. How do you not know Pandev?
How did we not think of that? We really
Pandev. We're all talking about the same person. Sorry.
We're all on the same page now. Now my GOAWs. Now, to be fair, as much as I've sort of bastardized this whole GOAWs thing, I do always give honorable mentions and then make one GOA. So there's at least that much. So I will give out a couple honorable mentions. Number one, to the Ballymena and Coleraine teams. This is in Northern Ireland. They played in a League Cup game, and they went to penalty kicks. They needed 44 penalties to determine a winner. 44. They had to go through the whole team 4 times. And in that span, there were, it wasn't like everybody was hitting them. It's just like when somebody saved it or sent it over, the next guy would as well. It was the craziest thing. 44 penalties to finish the League Cup game, which is just insane. Another one, Joan Laporta, new Barca leverage shop. It's a great one. They're selling 15,000 diamonds, $15,000, I think 13,000 pounds or something, diamonds made from New Camp grass. How that's possible? I thought diamonds took like literally thousands of years to be made. I don't understand anything that goes on with the chemistry of this or the biological sciences. I don't understand. But they got $15,000 Barcelona New Camp diamonds, and so they'll be able to register another player or two this off season. So shout out to Joan Laporta for that.
Pulling the levers, baby.
Oh man, he's got so many levers. Last honorable mention is to the Alianza Lima in-game ops team. So this is in Peru, and they came down to, it was the final, I don't know if it was the final game of the season, but it was near the end of the season this past weekend, and their big rival, Universitario, was coming to their stadium. And, basically what happened was Universitario won the game. I think it was 2-0, and they won the league by winning that game, on Alianza Lima's home field. And so the in-game ops team, this is crazy. The moment the final whistle was blown, they shut off all the lights, and they refused to turn them back on. So the entire stadium was dark. They wouldn't turn it back on. So the team that won, Universitario, they had to basically go on the field and celebrate in complete darkness. They turned it around, but they turned it into like a fun thing where they, had their phones out and they had some flares and stuff. And so they ran, they did like a victory lap and all that stuff. And, obviously it turned into a very memorable thing. But the fact that Alianza Lima, they were so petty that they just shut the lights off and said, nope, we're not turning back on, is just, it's next level pettiness, incredible shithousery. Wow. Just wow. Well done, I guess. Hopefully nobody got hurt and everything is just sort of a funny footnote to that. But man, what a move on that one. Because how many people had to okay that and sign off on that move? It had to have been like a lot of people, right?
I don't know. How many people do you think are involved in Peruvian league decision making? I think it was one dude that was
one
petty.
dude's like, fuck this.
Nope, shut him off.
Turn the lights off.
Off.
Oh my God. All right. Well, they're the number one honorable mention. I got to give the go this week to Logan Ndembe. So this guy, he's playing for Sporting Kansas City. He's been killing it like for most of the season. He played really well in the playoff series against St. Louis. That include playing basically an entire second half with a torn ACL in the second game.
Right.
How crazy is that? That guy went out and played in basically 40 minutes after tearing his ACL, and he played well in a playoff game against, the number one seed in the West. Wow. That is, I don't even know what to say about that. I'm going to knock on all the wood right now. I've never actually torn like a ligament, a knee ligament anyway. I've had fucked up ankle ligaments, but never had sort of ACL, MCL, LCL, PCL problems. God, I got to knock on more wood. Hold on, give me a minute here. But how does as somebody who is, has recently had to deal with this, can you even fathom playing 40 minutes on a torn ACL?
No, no, that's nuts. So I did my knee on like 3 separate occasions, and I rehabbed myself back on 2 of them, and then out to the third one, I was like, oh, I did something, didn't I? But I like you do have some mobility afterward. You're not completely immobile, but there's something wrong in there. Like
there's
you
something
can feel
loose, right? There's
something amiss, right? Yeah, it doesn't. There's just the stability is the big thing. It's not a ton of pain. It is initial pain, but it's not tons and tons of pain. It's stability that you lose, and then that pain comes after that. To play 40 minutes at a high level is insane, though, dude. I played pickup basketball on it, and I was worried. 40 minutes at a high, like in a playoff game, and playing well is nuts. Shout out to him. That's insane.
Crazy. So Logan Ndembe, you are my go of the week, and that's all we got. Guys, we got a big international break. I mean, big-ish, I guess. We really just got to win. Just win, baby.
Yeah.
That's really all that matters at this point. And don't get injured. Please, God, don't get injured. Thank you to Tyler, who was with us for a minute. Thank you, of course, to Mitchell for being here the whole time. And everybody else, thank you for listening. We will be back with another episode next week. See you guys then.